Professors try to humiliate and embarrass a black student. Little do they know, they're about to witness the rise of a math genius who shatters every expectation. An elite university, a black student fighting against the odds, and professors who think they've got him figured out. What happens next will leave you speechless. Watch as he turns their ridicule into a powerful triumph, proving that genius knows no boundaries. Before dive and let us know from where you are watching. We love to know your thoughts. Stay tuned, you won't believe what happens next. On the first day of class, Marcus, a black student from a humble background, walks into a prestigious math lecture hall filled with elite students. His heart pounds in his chest, not from excitement, but from the looming tension of being judged. Marcus is an exceptional student, but he is also aware that in a room full of privileged individuals, his very presence will be questioned. As he takes his seat in the back row, the professors enter. They glance at Marcus, then at each other, their expressions conveying judgment. Professor Gregory, known for his high standards, scans the class with a smug grin, and the tension rises. His eyes settle on Marcus for a moment longer than necessary. So, let's get this straight, Professor Gregory begins, addressing the class. This is a selective course for the brightest minds. Not everyone is cut out for the demands of advanced mathematics. Marcus senses the subtle racism in the professor's tone. He tightens his grip on his notebook, the weight of his ancestry and struggles pressing down on him. As the weeks wore on, Marcus's presence in the class was marked by quiet whispers and sidelong glances. It wasn't the kind of attention he wanted. At first, it was subtle, little gestures, dismissive looks, comments dropped in passing. But soon, it became clear to him that the elite students, many of whom came from families with long legacies in academia, saw him as an outsider, an anomaly who didn't belong. One day, as the class gathered for a group discussion, Marcus contributed a thoughtful point on the current lesson about abstract algebra. His ideas were well-formed, intelligent, and backed by months of deep research. But as he spoke, the room fell into a heavy silence. A few of the more outspoken students exchanged uncomfortable glances, and the professor, Professor Gregory, didn't even acknowledge Marcus's input. Instead, the discussion moved on, as if his words had never been spoken. It wasn't long before Marcus began to feel the weight of their judgment. He overheard whispered conversations about him during break. What does he know about these complex theories? He's just here because of diversity quotas, one student said. Another remarked, I can't believe they let someone like him into this class. Does he even understand what we're talking about? The comments stung, but they weren't new to Marcus. He had faced this type of discrimination before. At high school, in his neighborhood, even in the scholarship interview. People doubted him simply because of the color of his skin. But this time, it hurt more because it wasn't just random people, it was the very institution he'd fought so hard to be a part of. It was the elite, the chosen ones who believed they were above him, and that was something he hadn't expected. In one particularly painful encounter, Marcus found himself paired with two classmates for a project. They were both highly regarded by the professors and known for their academic prowess. They glanced at each other as Marcus suggested a solution for their group's problem. One of them, Mark, chuckled softly and shook his head. I don't think that's how it works. Maybe you should leave the real work to us. Marcus wanted to respond, to tell them how wrong they were, how much he knew, but the words caught in his throat. Instead, he sat back, hands gripping his pen tightly, his thoughts racing. This was the challenge he had expected, but not the one he had hoped for. His ideas were being dismissed, not because they were wrong, but because of who he was. The subtle racism didn't just come in the form of words. It was in the way his classmates ignored him during discussions, the way they took credit for his suggestions, the way they laughed at his ideas when they didn't match the conventional path. Despite this, Marcus refused to give up. He wasn't there to be liked, nor was he there to make friends. He was there to learn. to prove that his worth wasn't defined by anyone else's perception of him. Every sneer, every snicker, only fueled his determination. He spent countless hours in the library, alone, going through the textbooks, revisiting lectures, and solving problems no one else dared to touch. His math genius, hidden in the shadows of this prejudice, was silently growing. The more they tried to ignore him, the more Marcus realized how much they underestimated him. Little did they know, he wasn't here to blend in. He was here to stand out. And when the time came, they would all know just how wrong they were about him. But for now, he endured, quietly, persistently, preparing himself for the moment when he would prove that a person's brilliance can never be judged by their appearance or background. As the days turned into weeks, Marcus found himself sinking deeper into the quiet isolation of the class. The subtle racism, the dismissive glances, the ignored contributions, it all began to weigh heavily on him. He had expected the challenge, but he had not anticipated just how suffocating it would feel to be constantly underestimated. Yet, through all the silent struggles, something in Marcus changed. The mockery, the doubts, the prejudices, it no longer made him angry. Instead, it fueled a quiet determination. He spent his nights in the library, hours slipping away unnoticed as he immersed himself in the subject that had always brought him joy, mathematics. The same books that the professors referenced, the same complex theories they talked about, Marcus devoured them all. But it wasn't just about memorizing formulas or solving equations. It was about understanding the deeper beauty of the subject, the way numbers and abstract concepts dance together in harmony, revealing the universe's hidden patterns. With every turn of the page, Marcus's confidence grew. He saw connections others didn't, patterns that were invisible to most. When his classmates would gather in groups to discuss their assignments, Marcus quietly observed from the sidelines. They spoke in technical jargon, their words laced with assumptions and pretension, but Marcus saw their confusion behind the academic facade. They couldn't grasp the concepts in the way he could. He knew it, but he wasn't going to make it obvious. Instead, he kept his ideas to himself, allowing his work to speak for him when the time came. Every now and then, he overheard another whispered conversation or a passing remark. "Marcus? The black guy, right? What's he even doing here? He doesn't belong in this class." Their words were like arrows, sharp and painful, but Marcus learned not to let them pierce his resolve. The deeper they tried to push him down, the more determined he became to rise above them. At night, when the world around him was asleep, Marcus would sit in front of a chalkboard in his dorm room, scribbling away at the most challenging problems. Some of them took hours to solve, others days, but he never gave up. His eyes were locked on the end goal, proof. Proof that his skin color had nothing to do with his brilliance. Proof that his worth wasn't measured by the assumptions of others. He wasn't just working for a grade, but for something far greater, respect. Then one day, he stumbled upon a problem that had stumped even the best student. It was an intricate proof, one that required a deep understanding of abstract mathematics. Marcus could feel the excitement building within him as he realized he was on the verge of solving it. Every idea he had come up with before seemed to align perfectly with this puzzle. It was as if the universe had been waiting for him to discover this breakthrough. And in that moment, Marcus made a decision. No more hiding in the shadows. No more silent struggle. It was time to show the world, specifically the professors and students who doubted him, what he was truly capable of. With the last stroke of chalk, he completed the proof, a smile tugging at his lip. But it wasn't about the smile. It was about what this moment would lead to. This was just the beginning. Marcus was no longer just a student in the back row. He was a genius, quietly preparing to rise to the top. The semester had begun to wear thin, and the whispers had grown louder. Every class, every lecture, every group discussion felt like a battleground. Marcus had come to expect the indifference, the exclusion, but what really struck him was the growing belief that he was no match for the class, for the professors, for the academic world he had dared to step into. Each day, he walked into the lecture hall with the burden of his own self-doubt, knowing that no matter how hard he worked, the odds seemed stacked against him. Yet, amidst all the negativity, there was one moment, just one, that could change everything. The professor, Gregory, had assigned the class a notoriously difficult problem, one that had baffled even the brightest minds in the academic world for years. It was a puzzle many had failed to solve, a challenge so complex that even the most talented students in the room were intimidated. Marcus, however, wasn't afraid. He had been working on a similar problem in private, meticulously analyzing every element of the equation, breaking it down piece by piece. It wasn't just a problem to him, it was a test, a challenge not only for his intellectual abilities but for everything he had faced in his life. He knew this was his moment. But Marcus kept his head low, continuing to work quietly in the corner. Every now and then, he caught sight of his classmates and their smug confidence. They struggled with the problem, just as he knew they would. Professor Gregory observed from the front, his face betraying no emotion, but Marcus could sense the unspoken skepticism in the air. It wasn't just the complexity of the problem. It was the subtle, almost imperceptible expectation that a student like him couldn't possibly rise to the occasion. Hours passed, and the frustration in the room grew. One by one, students abandoned their attempts, their faces etched with defeat. The professor's eyes scanned the room, his gaze pausing on Marcus for a fraction of a second longer than necessary. It was as though Gregory was silently daring him to fail, to confirm the doubts everyone had. And then, without warning, Marcus stood up. The class turned to look at him, their whispers suddenly quieting. Even Professor Gregory's eyes narrowed, his expression shifting into one of silent curiosity, though he hadn't quite let go of the doubt. Marcus walked confidently to the front of the room, his mind clear, his resolve unwavering. With each step, the weight of the past weeks, the doubts, the ridicule, the skepticism, melted away. This wasn't just about solving a problem. This was about showing everyone, but more importantly himself, that he was not just a student. They were about to witness the power of raw talent and determination. As Marcus approached the chalkboard, he began to write. The symbols, the numbers, the equations all seemed to flow from his mind with a fluidity that stunned even him. It was as if the entire semester had been preparing him for this exact moment. The complex calculations, the abstract principles, it was all coming together in a way that felt effortless. His hands moved quickly, purposefully, each stroke of the chalk adding another layer to the unfolding proof. The room fell silent, every eye now fixed on him. Marcus didn't need to explain himself. He didn't need words. His work on the board spoke for itself. The proof, step by step, revealed a stunningly elegant solution, one that not only solved the problem but did so with a level of insight that no one had anticipated. When he finished, Marcus stepped back and turned to face the class. For a brief moment, no one spoke. Professor Gregory stood there, frozen, as if unsure how to react. His eyes lingered on the board, then back at Marcus, his mouth slightly agape. Impressive, the professor finally muttered, his voice barely audible. But it wasn't just the words that spoke volumes, it was the shift in the atmosphere, the unmistakable recognition that Marcus had done something extraordinary. He had done what no one thought possible. He had shattered every assumption, every barrier. As the class slowly began to murmur in disbelief and admiration, Marcus didn't bask in the sudden spotlight. He wasn't interested in their approval. For him, the victory was personal. It was the culmination of years of feeling like an outsider, of being dismissed, of battling against not just complex math problems but societal expectations. But now there was no mistaking it. He wasn't just another student in the back of the room. He was a genius. The professor's tone had shifted. "I apologize for my earlier remarks," Gregory said, though his voice lacked the same authority it once held. "Clearly, you have proven yourself." But Marcus didn't care about the apology. He'd already won. He had proven more than just his mathematical brilliance. He had proven that no one, no matter their background, could ever be overlooked again. In that moment, Marcus knew that his journey was only beginning. This was just one battle in a much larger war, not only for academic success but for respect, for recognition, and for breaking the chains of prejudice. With every problem he solved, he was rewriting the narrative, not just for himself but for every person who had been told they couldn't succeed because of who they were. This was his time to rise, and no one could ever take that away from him. As the semester drew to a close, Marcus had already proven himself in ways that no one could have anticipated. His silent struggle, the isolation he endured, had transformed into a quiet strength. The same professors who had doubted him now looked at him with a mixture of respect and awe, their earlier skepticism crushed beneath the weight of his brilliance. But Marcus wasn't interested in basking in their newfound admiration. For him, it wasn't about their approval, it was about something deeper, something personal. It was the final lecture of the term, and the atmosphere in the room was different. The once elite students, who had once sneered and whispered behind his back, now approached Marcus with a newfound respect. There were no more mocking glances or condescending remarks. Instead, they sought his insight, his perspective, eager to hear what he had to say about the next challenge. As the lecture progressed, Marcus could feel the change in the air. The room was no longer filled with tension or exclusion. It was a space where ideas were shared, where brilliance was acknowledged, and where the color of one's skin or background didn't define their worth. The professors, especially Professor Gregory, who had once been the most dismissive, now treated Marcus as an equal. They no longer saw him as the token student but as the prodigy he was. When the final exam arrived, the entire class was on edge. The problem they were asked to solve was considered one of the most difficult in the history of the course. It was a mathematical enigma that had stumped even the brightest minds in the academic community. Marcus sat at his desk, the weight of the challenge heavy on his shoulders, but he no longer felt fear. He felt something else, confidence. He had faced much worse in life than this problem. With a steady hand, he began to work through the equations. His mind raced as he applied the principles he had studied and the insights he had gained over the past month. Every number, every variable, every calculation seemed to fall into place effortlessly. It was as though the problem was simply waiting for him to solve it. When he finished, he sat back and looked at the solution in front of him, a flawless, elegant proof that no one had expected. As the exams were handed back, Marcus' heart pounded in his chest. When Professor Gregory handed him his paper, his eyes met Marcus with something new in them, genuine respect. "Marcus, I must say, this is exceptional. You've not only solved the problem, but you've done so in a way that shows a true understanding of the subject. I didn't expect this level of insight. You've shown us all something we couldn't see." The room was quiet. The other students, who had once doubted him, now turned to him with a mixture of awe and admiration. Some of them even approached him after class, offering congratulations and asking him how he had arrived at the solution. Marcus didn't speak much, but he smiled inwardly, knowing that he had done more than just solve a complex equation. He had dismantled the walls of prejudice and doubt that had surrounded him from the moment he walked into that classroom. As the semester came to an end, the final grades were posted, and Marcus received the highest marks in the class. His success wasn't just academic. It was a triumph over the biases and assumptions that had tried to hold him back. He had proved to the world that no matter who you were, no matter where you came from, true genius could not be contained by stereotypes or prejudices. Marcus walked across the campus, feeling the weight of his journey lifting off his shoulders. The world had seen him for what he truly was, a brilliant mind deserving of respect and recognition. He wasn't just a student. He was a symbol of resilience, determination, and the power of self-belief. He had shattered expectations, overcome obstacles, and risen above the shadows that had tried to define him. and as he looked toward the future, he knew this was only the beginning. He wasn't just going to be a success in the classroom, he was going to change the world, and no one could ever take that away from him. His story was a reminder to everyone. No matter where you come from, no matter how many people try to put you down, your brilliance will always find a way to shine. The road to success is never easy, but it is always worth it. Marcus' journey proves that no matter the obstacles in your path, no matter the doubt and prejudice you face, your potential is limitless. He fought for his place, and so can you. Never let anyone tell you what you can or can't achieve. Your brilliance, your drive, and your determination are all you need to rise above any challenge. Keep pushing forward, keep believing in yourself, and remember, your greatest victories are still ahead. Stay strong, stay inspired, and always keep striving for greatness. If Marcus' story inspired you, then make sure to hit that subscribe button. Join us on this journey of resilience, determination, and the power of self-belief. We bring you stories that will ignite your inner strength and remind you that greatness is within reach. Don't miss out, subscribe now, and be a part of a community that's all about pushing boundaries and achieving the impossible. Remember, the best is yet to come.